Most people are not trapped by their circumstances. They are trapped by their identity, and that is why they never change. Because every breakthrough in life demands the death of the person you currently are. Not physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. The painful truth is this: you cannot become extraordinary while remaining attached to the identity that keeps you average. And most people never realize this until life breaks them hard enough to force the transformation. Look carefully at your life, your habits, your reactions, your fears, your excuses, your comfort zones. These things are not random. They are evidence of the identity you have been reinforcing for years. A person who believes they are weak behaves weakly. A person who believes they are unlucky expects disappointment. A person who secretly believes they are unworthy will sabotage every opportunity placed before them. Identity is not just how you see yourself. Identity becomes the invisible system that controls your entire life. And this is why change feels so difficult. Because when you try to improve your life, your old identity fights back. You say you want discipline, but your current identity is addicted to comfort. You say you want success, but your current identity fears responsibility. You say you want peace, but your current identity survives on chaos and distraction. This is the battle nobody talks about. The war between who you are becoming and who you have been for years. And most people lose this battle because they keep trying to add new habits without destroying the identity underneath. They want transformation without sacrifice, growth without discomfort.
A new life without becoming a new person.
But life does not work that way. There is a reason forests burn before new life emerges. There is a reason muscles tear before they grow stronger. There is a reason the caterpillar must completely dissolve inside the cocoon before becoming something capable of flight. Destruction is often the beginning of transformation, not the end of it. Years ago, there was a man who dreamed of becoming exceptional. He read books, watched motivational videos, made plans every January, promised himself that this year would be different. But every night, he returned to the same habits, scrolling endlessly, avoiding difficult work, seeking comfort whenever life became uncomfortable. And slowly, he began to understand something terrifying. His problem was not lack of information, it was identity. Deep inside, he still saw himself as someone who quit, someone who avoided pain, someone who waited for motivation before taking action. So even when opportunities appeared, his identity pulled him backward, like chains around his ankles. One morning, after years of frustration, he made a decision that changed everything. He stopped asking, "What do I want?" and started asking, "Who must I become?" That question destroyed his old life, because he realized discipline was not something you occasionally practiced. It was an identity. Resilience was not a temporary mood. It was an identity. Confidence was not loud words or fake energy. It was an identity built through repeated proof. So he began systematically destroying the person he used to be, not through dramatic speeches, not through motivation, but through daily acts of war against his old self. He woke up when he did not feel like waking up. He trained when his body begged for comfort. He stayed silent instead of reacting emotionally. He kept promises to himself when nobody was watching. And slowly, painfully, something changed. The old identity began to die. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Every disciplined action became evidence. Every difficult choice weakened the old version of himself. And eventually, the habits that once felt impossible became natural, because he was no longer forcing himself to act differently. He had become someone different. This is what people misunderstand about transformation. Your life changes after your identity changes, not before. The world responds to who you believe you are, and your actions will always defend your identity. If you identify as lazy, you will protect laziness. If you identify as weak, you will unconsciously avoid challenges. If you identify as a victim, you will constantly search for reasons why life is unfair. But when you begin constructing a new identity, your behavior changes naturally. A disciplined person does not negotiate with excuses. A resilient person expects hardship. A focused person protects their mind from distraction. Identity shapes behavior. Behavior shapes destiny. And this is why your breakthrough requires destruction. Because your current identity was built for survival, not greatness. It was built from old fears, old failures, old wounds, old environments. Some of you are still carrying identities created by experiences from years ago. A teacher who doubted you, a failure that embarrassed you, a painful rejection, a season where you felt powerless. And without realizing it, you turned temporary pain into permanent identity. You stopped seeing failure as something that happened,
and started seeing yourself as a failure.
That is how people become trapped for decades, not by reality, but by the stories they continue repeating inside their minds. And the dangerous part is this: your identity will always try to protect itself, even when it is destroying your future. Because the mind prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar growth. That is why people stay in toxic environments, why they repeat destructive habits, why they remain average while dreaming of greatness. Their identity is addicted to familiarity. So if you truly want transformation, understand this clearly. You are not just building a better life. You are killing an old version of yourself. And that process is uncomfortable, because every level of growth demands separation. You must separate from old habits, old excuses, old environments, sometimes even old relationships. Not because you hate the past, but because you refuse to live there forever. The person you want to become cannot coexist with the person you refuse to let go of. And this is where real discipline begins. Not when motivation appears, but when you continue despite emotional resistance. Because every time you choose growth over comfort, you weaken the old identity. Every time you stay focused instead of distracted, you weaken the old identity. Every time you keep going while exhausted, uncertain, or afraid, you weaken the old identity. Until one day, you look in the mirror and realize something incredible. The person who once doubted themselves no longer exists. And that is the moment breakthroughs happen, not suddenly, not magically, but as the result of repeated internal transformation. So if your life feels uncomfortable right now, if old parts of you feel like they are falling apart, if your habits, mindset, and relationships are shifting, do not panic. Transformation often feels like destruction before it feels like growth. The old version of you is fighting for survival, but your future requires its surrender. And one day, you will thank yourself for having the courage to let that old identity die. Because on the other side of that destruction is the person you were always capable of becoming: stronger, wiser, disciplined, focused, unbreakable. Remember this: your greatest breakthroughs will never come from protecting your current identity. They will come from having the courage to destroy it.